Boys and girls, welcome back to episode 21 of October. If he knows what we're doing, today we'll be listening to some stories in the back room. I can't keep that accent up. I can't do Irish very well, but I am trying my best. Because today we're going to be drawing some leprechauns, or maybe just some treasure. As today, the word is treasure. I was going to do a pirate, but I thought to myself, no, I'm going Cornish again to do a leprechaun. But here's a little bit of treasure that you may not have seen already for day 1. Day 2 was mindless. Day 3 was bold. Day 4 was freeze. We're going to be going back into Minecraft. I'm going to do it a bit earlier today because I have a chance to do so. So if you want to join me, Mixer, you can do. The links or links to other videos are in the playlists. Day 6 was Husky. And, well, we had a bit of trouble, but I saved the picture by putting a bit of cake in there. That one we'll just skip over. And that one there is Frail as an old lady. Again, keeping into like mythical, that's the wrong word, fairy tale sort of thing. I seem to be doing all the fairy tales, but I think that's what the Inktober was all about this year. And then we get to Swing, which is, again, one of my favourite pictures I've drawn. And that was on day 9. Day 10 was patterns. And as you can see, I did a few patterns and relaxed back because it was getting to day 10. I just wanted to, before I burst out everything and put it all on one page, I thought, let's have a relaxed back. And then day 11 was Snow. And I did Abominable Snowman. Not the one that you would seen in the new Disney film. I think it's Disney or Pixar, one of the films coming out. It's not that one. It's just Abominable Snowman. And then we get to a dragon, which, again, I thought of doing a dragon today for like a dragon sitting on gold, as in like you do in Lord of the Rings. But I thought, no, okay, we'll do leprechauns. And then that was day 12. Now we get to day 13, where, as you can see, is the end of the game on God of War. If you haven't checked that one out, check out the playlist for that one. Then we get to Overgrown, because that word was Ash. Then we get Overgrown, and did a quick scene of Maleficent, or the thorns as that she creates for Sleeping Beauty. And then we get to day 15, and I Am Legend, or Legend was the word, and I drew the cover of I Am Legend. Hopefully I did a good job on that one. And I will be digitizing this one at some point. I don't want to color it on this page because I do want to do things with this one because I did enjoy doing it, and I put quite a bit of detail into this one I don't normally do. And that gave me an inspiration for day 16, where I did where the wild things are, because the word was wild. I like to put in there. I put a few bit of trees in, and I was practicing my tree shading and things like that, as well as on this one. And did a little bit extra on Instagram for you guys to check out with Spy sticking a horn through. And then on day 17, the word was ornament. Again, I didn't want to do a Christmas ornament because I thought it was a bit out of the season, because we haven't even had a Halloween yet. So I picked myself up a ornament off the top of my shelf, and I drew that one. And hopefully that's as close as you would think to get it at my talent style. And then again, it was Friday, and I just wanted to chill back and draw a cartoon, basically. So I drew myself a picture from the Beano. This is actually Dennis the Menace, because the word was misfit. And then keeping with the sling and all that, as the word was sling, I could have done somebody in a hospital sling, or they've broken their arms, such and things. But I thought, nah, that ain't me. Let's do somebody slinging out what I tried to do an acorn, and he's in Sherwood Forest, as you can see Robin Hood's hat hanging up. And then we get to Sunday. I wanted to just chill out. We listened to a chilled out story yesterday. Hopefully enjoyed that one. I tried to do like a stylish sort of picture here. It's one of my favourite coastlines from where I live in Cornwall. And I see that quite often. Let's call that Nair Head. Have you ever heard of Nair Head? Nair is where I used to work, and I used to see this scene every single day. But I wanted to put in the 3 things, or the 2 things that are very important to me, because nothing else really matters other than my own drawing my son, who walks beside me at every step of the way because of reasons and good reasons. And then we have my little pup who's barking in the background, so I couldn't not put her in. As it's a beach scene, we're going for a walk on the beach, treading our way through the sand because the word was tread. Now, today, the word is leprechaun. No, it's not. It is treasure. And I didn't want to do Treasure Island because I was going to do Treasure Island. I thought I was going to do some pirates and treasure, things like that. And I thought to myself, I could do a mermaid under the sea, but I did mermaid already this year. And I don't want to go back over to mermaids and things. So, leprechauns, everybody. I'm the leprechaun. And can't you do it? I can't do Irish. Top of the morning, potatoes, all that jazz. Oh, yes, we got to do a little bit of Irish with a little bit of leprechaun. So we're going to have a leprechaun standing either on his goal, a little bit of rainbow maybe at the bottom, and something over here as well. Might do a few things extra for like treasure and things like that. Going to have his pot of gold here, maybe with the rainbow, maybe a larger pot of gold with the rainbow going off. Obviously, the character will be standing either on top or he'll be beside it. I'm not sure yet. I haven't got any reference. I have obviously been looking at pictures, but my phone, normally when I've got references, I'm using my phone, but the tablet I would normally listening to the stories with is still on charge. So I'll be using my phone. So I'm going to be doing this completely without any reference like I have been. Like I said, I do generally need some sort of reference just to sort of spark my idea and put my eyes on things. So I'm going to be without reference today, drawing a leprechaun on his pot of gold with a rainbow, and maybe I'll put that into a scene. I'm not sure, depending on how long it's going to take me. If it takes me more than an hour, then hey ho, I'll put some colour in and things like that. If it takes me more than 2 hours, hopefully I would have finished it and coloured the whole thing in. But we are going to be in for a lengthy stream, more than likely. So let's get some stories in on the background. And if you guys do want to leave a comment in today's stream, you're more than welcome because we are live. If you are watching back, feel free, again, to leave a comment. And if you're new and you don't know where you are, I'm Blut084, BLUT084, Art and Games. I'm here every single day on YouTube, occasionally on Mixer, and every day and night over on Instagram. Mixer is mainly for gameplay. Instagram's for everything that I do and telling you what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and where I'm going to be doing it. So if you want to keep up to date, you can look over there. But the best way to know exactly when I've gone live is to ding that bell and hit subscribe. Otherwise, guys, let's get on with what I have been doing and get a little bit of doing on. If my phone would let me do it. Let's go. This may be a little bit adult, but I don't think there's any swearing in this audiobook, but there is adult themes like beer and partying and things like that. So if you are sensitive or you don't want your children to listen to this, definitely either fast forward, listen to yourself for a little bit, see what you think. But if you just want to learn how to draw or see me draw this, you can always turn down the sound and listen to your own favourite audiobook and do a little sketch on the outside.
Stay away from O'Malley's green beer. By Midland and Allen done it.
Hopefully you can hear that okay in the background. If you can't, definitely let me know. I have a
tradition on St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day.
I do what most people do and visit the local Irish pub.
Of course, yes.
But my version is a little different. I don't go to drink and get hammered on Guinness and bottom shelf whiskey. No. I go to watch out for those who visit O'Malley's pub. Terence O'Malley has owned that beaten-down bar on 5th Street for as long as anyone can remember. He's not an old man, though, not by any means. It's more than the rundown.
He broke his accent. I don't think he's Irish. You reckon, guys?
Seems like it's been around for aeons. O'Malley's pub is the kind of place that you mostly forget about until someone brings it up. Then you seem to know everything about it. I've had a lot of blurry, formative memories at O'Malley's, but I overlook it most of the year all the same. It's the kind of place that when you walk in, you get this sense that you shouldn't be there. O'Malley's is dark and unwelcoming, with usually just Terence himself working behind the bar. If you happen to see another customer, It's one of the local bums nursing a beer and crying about the.
Oh, thank you very much for that, like. Welcome to the stream.
Not that Terence gives a shite about anyone's problems. That perception of O'Malley's changes for everyone come St. Paddy's Day. It makes sense. Ours is not a big town, and when you're the only Irish pub around, well, people are going to remember you, and they're going to flood in. That bothers Terence.
Try not to boil a cauldron. I was nearly drawing a cauldron
even
then.
though his family has lived in the States for 3 generations now, he considers himself Irish first and foremost. It's his whole identity. You can see why then he hates the fake accented, begreened drunks who treat his place like an Irish-themed amusement park 1 day a year. That's why I go to O'Malley's pub every year to watch. Because sometimes, when the crowd gets a little too rowdy and the tone too dismissive, Terence brings out the green beer. I first witnessed it 5 years ago. I was a college student then on an exchange program, and just as dumb as every other kid who thought they understood what St. Paddy's Day was about. I was there with my friend Charlie and his girlfriend Annette. To avoid being the third wheel, I also invited a guy named Shelby with us. I didn't know too much about Shelby, but I knew that he liked to party, and figured he'd be worth a laugh or two. We were several drinks in when Shelby started living up to his reputation. The man was absolutely smashed on bad whiskey, and started loudly giving us an ill-informed rundown on recent Irish history. From the corner of my eye, I could see Terence O'Malley staring at Shelby from behind the bar. His look made my blood run cold. "Aye, man, let's call it a night, huh?" I said, clapping Shelby on the back. "Like hell, dude. It's St. Paddy's. I'm going to stay out all night, frolicking wee ones," Shelby said, and laughed at his own bad accent. Things only got worse from there. Shelby continued to loudly opine on all things Irish, and before we knew what was happening, he was next to the table doing an approximation of Riverdance while singing a completely made-up ballad. All the while, Terence watched him. By this point, I was more embarrassed than anything. Charlie and Lynette exchanged glances, made an excuse about an early morning exam, and took off. It was just me and Shelby then. I was somewhat responsible for Shelby, since I was the one to invite him. I pulled him back down to the table. "Everyone's staring, dude. Come on." "Screw off, jerk. I'll dance if I want to." I was about to get up and walk out myself when Terence appeared at our table. He looked right at Shelby, but spoke to me. "Your friend here thinks he's quite an expert, doesn't he? Has he never tried my green beer?" Shelby cut in. "Aye, I'll try your green beer, brother." He giggled again at his own bad accent. Terence grunted. "That you will. It'll open your eyes right up." Something about Terence's tone of voice and expression made me uneasy. I watched as he disappeared into the back room. A full minute later, and he returned with a pint glass of liquid the colour of cloudy jade. He put it down in front of Shelby with a scowl. "On the house, brother," said Terence, emphasising that last
I'm going
word
to get a bit of
sardonically.
noise
Everything about the
interruption in a moment,
situation
guys.
felt wrong, but part of me
Because there's
felt
people
like Shelby
doing,
deserved what was coming to him.
Washing down the
I figured that
pathways. So
Terence
yeah,
had probably spit in it. or at
landlord's
least
decided to do it
worse,
now.
Put a few
In the
ground up
afternoon.
laxatives
Fair
in
enough.
there.
Anyway, let's get back to what we
Turns
were doing.
out I'm
Here's
not
me pot of
quite
gold.
as
You like it?
creative as Terence. Shelby grinned ear to ear as he started to down the pint. The pale, opaque liquid sloshed down his chin and onto his Kiss me, I'm Irish, t-shirt. But he seemed none the wiser. You'd better slow down a little, huh? I asked, feeling queasy at the sight of him. In response, Shelby belched and chugged the rest of the glass. He slammed it down on the table, where it shattered. High quality stuff you've got over there, brother, he yelled over at Terence, who only gave an odd smile in return. All right, come on. Let's get you a cab, I said, standing up to pull Shelby in his unsteady feet. He swayed against me, but didn't resist. We made it most of the way into the alley before he vomited. Green, frothy liquid poured from his mouth as he retched up what appeared to be gallons of food and drink. When he finished, Shelby wiped the back of his hand against his mouth and grinned at me. Let me tell you some... He stopped suddenly, his eyes growing wide as he stared just above my right shoulder. Before I could even respond, Shelby began to frantically look around, spinning from one side to the other. No, 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 he shouted, his hands reaching up to grasp his face. He fell to his knees, soft whimpers coming from his vomit-slick lips. Dude, come on. You're just drunk and sick. I'll get you home, and you can sleep it off. No, Shelby screamed, wailing up at the sky. Dude, can't you see it? I can see it. I can see it all. What can you see? I asked, suddenly growing alarmed. Shelby was crying now, raking at his eyes with his fingernails. I can see everything. God. His voice was a mix of awe and terror. I watched as his eyes bulged in fear as he held his head between his palms and wept. I moved towards Shelby, thinking that I'd at least help him to his feet. I'd never seen anything quite so drunk before, and it was making me uncomfortable. Before I could get to him, however, I heard a rattle behind me. Terence was standing at the back door of the pub, a curious smile on his watchful face. How's your friend there, huh? The know-it-all knows too much now, don't he? I opened my mouth to ask Terence what he'd done to Shelby's drink, but no sound came out. Or maybe it did, but was drowned out by Shelby's tears. I can't really remember. What I do remember, as I was looking at Terence, I heard a sickening pop. Another one followed, accompanied by the most feral scream I have ever heard. I never forgot either of those sounds. I turned back to Shelby and felt my knees give way. He had fallen to the ground. Blood streamed from where his eyes had been, while his blood-stained thumbs grasped and twitched at nothing. His eyes hung limply from their optic nerves, swaying with the convulsions of his body. How was the green bear, brother? Terence asked, shaking his head and smiling. He looked down at the blood pooling underneath Shelby for another minute before walking back inside O'Malley's pub. Shelby's doctors said that there had been nothing wrong with his eyes. Physiologically, they were fine. I mean, yeah, they weren't in his head anymore, but all the systems. He just had some sort of psychotic episode, they said. Some sort of hallucination.
Maybe you should drink the green beer, boy. Don't be drinking the green beer.
But not unheard of. Probably the result of alcohol poisoning and some pre-existing undiagnosed mental disorder. I didn't buy it. I went to visit Shelby in the hospital shortly after it happened. He was lying in bed, gauze wrapped around his eyes. I could just make out a dark indent in each socket, through the translucent white fabric, and it made me go pale. I was happy that Shelby couldn't see my reaction. "How are you doing?" I asked tentatively. Shelby faced away from me and was quiet for a long time before finally answering. "You were there, dude. You know what happened." "Maybe. I don't know. Both of us were pretty drunk." "I see it. I see it all. Life. What's underneath everything. Just below the surface, the surging infinite darkness. The insignificance. The nothing. And the everything." Yeah. I couldn't think of a response to that. "And you know what the worst part is, dude?" "What's that?" "I can still see it all. Even with my eyes gone, I can see it all." He turned towards me and gave me what I supposed to be a rueful stare. I shuddered. I talked to the doctor before I left to find out what happened to Shelby. The doctor didn't know. Had never even seen anything quite like it before. The blindness he could learn to deal with, the doctor said, but the hallucinations and delusions were proven to be resistant to treatment. As far as I know, Shelby has been in residential treatment facility these last 5 years. I imagine he'll be there until he dies. After what happened to Shelby's, I made it my mission to keep an eye out for anyone given a green bear at O'Malley's. Terence doesn't like it, but he doesn't say anything about it either. In fact, since the incident with Shelby, I've never spoken to him about it at all. He just watches me and glares. He knows I won't be around forever, but there'll always be a never-ending stream of idiots who shows up to his pub on St. Patrick's Day. It might make him mad, but no one deserves what happened to Shelby, obnoxious drunk or no. That's why I go over to O'Malley's pub every year. Why I watch and wait, and give the warning to those who are offered Terence O'Malley's green beer.
That wouldn't make me
St.
crazy. I'd
Patrick's
want to
Day
see all that stuff.
Stupidity by Cedar Cliff. I'll preface this by saying I was really freaking stupid when this happened, for no good reason. So if it seems like I'm being an idiot at any or many points, it's because I was. A couple of years ago, when I was the tender age of 20, I was getting dinner in my neighborhood when this random dude came up to me, introduced himself as Zach, and invited me to a St. Patrick's Day party at his place later that evening. He's kind of cute. He's with a friend, so he's marginally less sketchy than he would have been by himself. And I'm like, well, it's St. Patrick's Day. I don't have plans, and I can't buy liquor for myself yet. Sure, why not? Let's party at this dude's house. I agreed to come by later, get my dinner, and head home. Later came, and my roommates and I headed over to the place, which was just a couple of blocks away from ours. From the get-go, it was kind of weird. The house was really quiet, like you'd expect to hear a party, even from outside, but no, dead silent. I was like, well, maybe it's in the basement or something. A really well-insulated basement. So we knocked, and Zach answered the door. He looked kind of surprised to see us, actually, but he let us in. And no party. Just Zach and what looked like his roommate, hanging out on the couch in their bare-ass living room watching TV. There were empty liquor bottles everywhere. At this point I was a little peeved, and my roommate was very peeved, so we decided to hang tight for a minute and see what happened. We chatted with the dudes. Zach commented on my roommate's fingernails. Weird. And Zach's roommate didn't say anything. Weird. And eventually my roommate decided to leave. I was about to go with her when Zach invited me to do some spray painting with him in his basement. I'm an artsy type, and this sounded like a pretty cool time to me, so I decided to go for it. He encouraged me to do a shot, which I accepted, and grabbed me a beer, and for a while it was pretty fun actually. I spray painted a dragon on the wall, and he wrote, "I heart you," on another wall. Weird. And tried to kiss me. I laughed him off without a kiss, and he went to get me a fresh beer. I was about done, but I had the second beer, and then went upstairs to head out. Zach insisted on one more shot. I wasn't feeling it, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. I'm a super lightweight, so at this point I was pretty messed up. I told him I should head out, but he started to usher me into his bedroom. I was still laughing, but underneath I was uncomfortable, looking for my purse, which I couldn't find in my drunkenness. But he was still pushing me into his room, toward his bed. I started to get scared. I insisted that I needed to find my purse. As I searched for it, pulling away from him when he tried to distract me from it, I could tell he was getting irritated and impatient. My urgency to find my things and leave went up a notch. I was hyper-conscious that I couldn't see his roommate or anyone else around me. After what felt like forever, I found it under a shirt, deliberately hidden maybe, and turned to go. By this point, I was very frightened. My heart was hammering, and I realized this guy got me all screwed up just to sleep with me, and I wanted to go. I told him I was leaving, and
Date
I
rape.
headed for the
Date
door,
rape.
which he was standing next to. He grabbed my arm. Now, he was a pretty big guy, and I'm a super tiny girl, but I reacted to it super fast and super negatively,
In the walls.
and I don't think he was ready for it. I whipped around and snarled, "Let go of my arm right now, jerk."
Ooh,
And
that
he
really
did.
hurt.
He looked super
Jerk.
startled, like I'd just socked him in the face or something. I booked it out of there and didn't look back. I was shaking and practically scared sober. Here's the thing, though. I don't think this dude even knew that what he was doing was a kind of rape. I think he'd done this before, and that everyone else was just barely willing to
Jesus,
talk
I didn't
about
realize
the
it was going to be
outcome
such
of
an
it.
adult theme today, guys.
Immediately,
I mean, they're
loudly,
good stories,
and
but
unequivocally,
just be warned that
I
I
think
did
he
you
let
warn
me
you at the
go
beginning.
because he didn't think of himself as a rapist, and being treated like one kicked his feet out from under him enough for me to get away. Which,
No idea what this has
frankly,
got to do with
is
Leprechaun's
bloody
mind, but
terrifying
you
in
know,
its own right.
the first one did.
A few weeks later, I saw Zach on the street. Not unusual. We live in the same area, and he tried to talk to me. I put up a stop hand and breezed past him without a word. After that, I never saw him again. So, St. Patrick's Day would-be rapist, let's not meet ever. The Haunted Pub by Bold Monsters. So thrilled to find a place on Reddit to share these experiences without being shouted down by those who figure they know all the answers about the universe. Lots of stories, but some of the freakiest things that happened were during the time I managed an Irish pub, now closed, in St. Augustine, Florida. As many may know, St. Augustine is touted as the nation's oldest city, and although this is only semi-true, the place is ancient and absolutely loaded with unexplained phenomena. I moved there to open a pub for a man who I'd previously worked. Since the gig was meant to be temporary, I was given lodging in the Monson Motor Lodge, on which property the pub was located. Although my life has been filled with paranormal encounters and high strangeness, it never occurred to me that the place may be haunted. I went straight to work hiring and training staff, and worked seriously long hours. One night, after close, I sat at the bar with the bartender and a server, tossing down a pint or two of stout. The bartender was out of smokes, and out of luck, because neither the server nor I smoked. His last resort was a huge ashtray in the office that was full of butts. Finally, the bartender got that desperate and announced that he was going to scavenge from the ashtray. The office was a small room at the back of the building and had two doors. The first, which the bartender used, was accessible only through the kitchen to our right. The other door was at the far end of a large room directly in our line of sight as we sat at the bar. Seconds after the bartender had disappeared into the kitchen, he came bursting through the second office door in a panic. "Where did she go?" he shouted across the large room towards us. "Who?" we asked. "The woman in the green dress." We started to wonder what was in his drink as he frantically ran around the pub looking for this woman. We had a clear shot towards the door and assured him that he was the only one who had passed through it. Once we got him calmed down, he explained that as he stepped into the office and turned on the light, he saw a woman in a green dress with a large hoop skirt going through the other door. So certain was he of what he saw that he was too afraid to go back and complete his quest for cigarette butts. He made us go for the ashtray so that he could calm his nerves. The next day, I relayed this experience to one of my servers, who said, "You know this place is haunted, don't you?" No, I hadn't even considered it. So she asked me, "Have you ever gone into the bathroom and seen the paper towels unrolled?" I said that I had seen this many times, and was often confused about who was doing it, since I always did a bathroom check at closing. Many times, I would go in and find a huge pile of paper towels leading from the dispenser into the trash can below. Well, it wasn't a human prankster. She went on to describe that she had done an opening check one morning, and when she entered the bathroom, not only was the pile of paper towels in the trash, but the lever of the dispenser was furiously going up and down, controlled by an unseen hand. There was another girl who refused to go into the bathroom alone, because she had heard the toilet paper dispenser in the other stall rattling loudly when she was the only one in the room. Although these incidents were curious and unsettling, the event that really terrified me took place in my hotel room. As a young woman living alone in a hotel, I was always a little uneasy about the usual things. One night, I had left the door cracked open so that my cat could get back in after his evening stroll. I was lying on the bed with no light on except the telly, when the other side of the bed gave way to what felt like the weight of another human. Although the weight was greater than my cat, so great that I actually rolled towards the indentation. I naturally assumed that he had jumped up on the bed and made a mental note to cut down on his food portions. When I reached over to pet him, though, he was not there. Finding this strange, I got up and turned on the light to see where he had gone. My cat was not in the room. I went back to the door and called out for him. He always came back running when I called, and this time he trotted back from the far side of the parking lot. It was physically impossible for him to have jumped onto the bed, back down again, and to have gone that far away in the time it took me to get back up and go to the door. This left me with visions of an intruder who must have broken in and must have hidden under my bed, waiting for me to come home. I finally got up enough nerve to look under the bed, only to find nothing. Realizing that I was sharing my room with an unseen tenant, I moved to the other bed and stayed up all night watching TV, too afraid to go to sleep. Needless to say, I moved out of that place as soon as I could. It's Not a Winter Storm by Afterglow. You can dismiss this as the paranoid ramblings of a senile old Yankee, but I'm writing to you today with a warning. It's not a winter storm like they said it was. I awoke last Tuesday at 7:30 a.m. to the sounds of my alarm clock radio. It's always set to a local station. I just about lost my patience for national news a couple of years back. Maybe it's something about getting old, but my world started to shrink when I hit 50, and I let it. I've never been one to lend an ear to world affairs, or any affairs outside my home state of Massachusetts, for that matter. I lived a quiet life as a fisherman at the docks in my town, spending weeks at a time out at sea every year. All around, I've spent every calendar day at sea at some point in my life, even Christmas. I've seen storms so fearsome that the pounding rain turned to bitter snow in front of my eyes, a rarity at sea. I've felt waves so large that they keep me awake, even now, 20-odd years later. Right as I'm on the precipice of sleep, they threaten to pull me back to consciousness, just as they almost pulled me back out to sea. Forgive an old man and his ramblings, but all of this to say that I thought I knew what to expect when I heard the radio newscaster say, "Batten down, folks. Another winter storm coming later this week." As I wiped the sleep from my eyes, I half listened to the newswoman's lengthy list of preparation tips before smacking the off button and swinging my legs over the side of the bed, joints and floorboards creaking in unison. That was 8 days ago. Every day leading up to the storm, I've woken to broadcasts about its effects, and every day the messaging has become less and less clear. Wednesday, it was the winter storm Riley will cause even more damage than last week's storm. Thursday, it was, "Cancel all your plans for Friday and Saturday, folks. The state advises all residents to stay in their homes until after the storm." Friday morning, I woke up with a jolt to the grating beeps of the statewide emergency alert system. I turned on my TV, which can usually be relied on to get at least a few channels. Not Friday. Friday, every screen was blank, except for a red banner at the bottom with the words, "State of emergency declared for coastal region of southern Massachusetts. Do not attempt to flee your homes," moving across repeatedly, all the while accompanied by that same grating 3-beep cycle. My stomach fluttered with uneasiness as I read the message a second time, and fully grasped the choice of words. Flee? Why would a whole town flee at the thought of some wind and snow? We're nor'easters ourselves, after all. I put my robe on and made my way down the stairs to my back door, expecting the fearsome gales and pelting snow that I had come to expect from a life at sea. Instead, I opened the door to an eerie, permeating quiet. The coastline cacophony that served as the constant background for my life here, the screaming of gulls and crashing of waves and howling of wind, was utterly gone, and in its place was a silence so complete that it caused the back of my neck to prickle with a deep and foreboding sense of wrong. The sky was devoid of the heavy, foreboding gray clouds that the newscasters had promised, instead featuring a consistent blanket of greenish-gray fog above the sea. I hurriedly closed the door, amplifying the distant sound of the 3 blaring beeps from my TV upstairs. I put a kettle of water on the stove before heading upstairs to get dressed, the uneasiness in my gut turning into an incessant gnawing as I turned to switch off the TV. The emergency alert at the bottom of the screen had changed to read, "Do not leave your home. Do 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 not leave your home." Underneath my feet, the kettle began to shriek as the beeping of the television reached a heightened pitch. "Do not leave your home. Do 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 not leave..." The television screen turned black with a pop, shutting down in coordination with my lights. A few seconds later, a sound with twice the force of a foghorn blast and the same thunderous intensity as a train blasting past roared over my head from the sea towards the mainland. A flash of green lit up the dim sky, for a second illuminating the utter
I don't know how many colours are in a rainbow, so I'm going to leave that there. I have to look it
I
up.
waited in my house for 38 minutes before the noise and rumbling came thundering past from the town back towards the sea. That was 5 days ago. The power came back on as soon as the noise was gone, as did the howl of the wind and crashing of the waves. But it's what happened during those 38 minutes that caused the gnawing in my gut to persist. They're saying the power outages were caused by heavy winds, but I don't buy it. I saw photos of the storm online, complete with heavy snow and wind-battered houses. That might be from some other town, but it sure as hell isn't from mine. We have no coastal flooding, no infrastructural damages, and no houses blown out to sea. What we have is thousands and thousands of dead birds. We have water that tastes like copper. We have bloated fish carcasses washing up on our beaches. I'm writing this today as a warning. I don't know what the hell happened last week, but I'm sure as hell it isn't what they said it was going to be. If you're in the Northeast, take special care. And if they tell you not to leave your homes, you do well to listen. I'm telling you this today as a warning, because today I woke up at 7:30 a.m. to the words, Winter Storm Quinn, set to break later this afternoon. Expected to cause even more damage than Riley. The snow isn't melting by Ijawa. I don't think I'm crazy, but part of me is hoping I am. I'm almost afraid to post this, for fear of finding out it's happening in other places. I know if I try telling people offline, they will think I'm crazy, and that won't help anyone. People never think about all the snow they bring with them into their cars, office, home, everywhere. Why would they? It's just snow after all. Once inside, it only takes minutes for remaining snow stuck to your jacket and boots to melt. It's just a normal part of winter. I know I never really thought about it. At least, not until yesterday. It started snowing here in Portland, Maine on Wednesday. I know other parts had been dealing with rough winter weather, but this was our first storm of the season. It wasn't even a bad storm. A bunch of us left the office early, but that was probably more due to work being snow. The snow was just an excuse to leave early. My girlfriend and I work at the same company, so I went home with her. It wasn't snowing that hard, but there was a decent amount of accumulation. We brushed the snow off the car windows and headed home. Once home, we had snow on our gloves, jackets, and hats. Again, like any other winter storm. It was an uneventful night. She had some baking to do to prepare for Thanksgiving, and I had some Dragon Age to play. We had to get up early the next morning. We were spending Thanksgiving separately with our families, so she was going to drop me off at my parents', then head to Manchester to hers. She was going to come back on Friday.
Alexa,
It must have been
how many
because
colours
I
in a
was
rainbow?
tired that I chose to ignore the first signs that something was off. There was some snow on the windowsill, just a little bit, so I figured she must have opened the window briefly when I was in the bedroom. Then there was our jackets, which still retained last night's snow. There also seemed to be more of it, if only just by a little bit, than from what I remembered last night. She didn't seem to notice, and I was still waking up and too tired to care. She grabbed her jacket, and I saw some snow fall to the ground. I grabbed my other jacket, since the one I wore the previous day was more for riding my bike at night. I kissed her goodbye when we got to my parents', and she left on her way to Manchester. I really hope that wasn't our last kiss. Thanksgiving was nice, but pretty much the same as the last few years. Ours consists of breakfast, parade, dog show, movie, then dinner. Boring, but nice. My girlfriend texted me shortly after she got to her parents', saying their power was out. It was both in Maine and New Hampshire. That night, my sister dropped me off back home. What greeted me when I opened the apartment door was shocking, to say the least. Snow everywhere. There was at least a foot covering everything. Snow tumbled into the hallway when the door opened. It was really cold, too. Colder than it was outside. I could see that the kitchen window was broken. A tree must have fallen, or a large branch, breaking the window, letting in the elements. Still, it seemed like entirely too much snow, considering it was only snowing through the morning, and not that hard. The shards of glass that still remained in the window didn't look right either. They were white, covered in thick frost. I got my landlord. He lives in the same building. He was more shocked than I was. He said that he was here all day and didn't hear anything break. No trees, no branches, or windows. He insisted that he would take care of it, and that he would cover any hotel costs until they cleared it out and fixed the window. He must have felt guilty about not noticing all day, since he wouldn't accept my help, and said that he would have someone come and help him. I was tired and worn out, so I didn't object. I called my sister to have her come pick me up again, so I could stay at my parents'. I tried calling my girlfriend to give her the bad news, but it went straight to voicemail. She had forgotten to charge her phone the night before, so it must have died, and she hadn't been able to charge it yet. I wish I still thought that was the case. I couldn't shake the image of our apartment covered in snow. It didn't seem natural. That was when I remembered about the snow on our jackets. There was also snow on our gloves when we got home. Wouldn't that have melted, though? It's not a long drive, but with the heat on in the car, it doesn't matter now. I went to work this morning, tired from lack of sleep. Strangely, not a lot of people showed up. I know that's not abnormal for the Friday after Thanksgiving, but I mean, people who were planning to come to work today didn't show up, and we were all having trouble reaching them. Fear was really starting to set in, but I didn't know exactly the cause. Why hadn't my girlfriend called me yet? That was running through my mind a lot this morning. One of my co-workers, who I consider a friend, was one of the ones who didn't show up. I figured if I drove over, I would find he was just running late
put a little
for
bit of
some
colour in?
dumb reason, and my fears would go away. He'd probably think it's weird that I was checking up on him, but it didn't matter. I needed to do this. As soon as I saw his...
And I need to do this. Alexa, how many colours in a rainbow?
Traditionally, there are 7 colours of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet.
Red, orange, yellow, green. Shit. Alexa, rainbow colours, how many?
Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean.
Don't think so. Alexa, how many colours in a rainbow?
Traditionally, there are 7 colours of the
that
rainbow:
one?
red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet.
Blue, indigo, and violet, I would guess. Because violet's a lighter colour to purple, and violet is purple. So yeah, I think that's the right colours. What do you reckon? We'll take a quick picture before I colour it in on said phone. Bit quiet. Are you enjoying the stories today, guys? Hopefully you are. I'm just going to take a quick pic of this. And a quick pic like this. Not too proud of this one. Yeah, I'm not too proud of this one, but it's a little scene I've created on my own. I haven't used any reference. I've listened to Elvis's story, so it's kind of influenced what I've been drawing. As I don't know if you can see what I've drawn. If you can, let me know in the comments. What's the leprechaun doing? And is the other leprechaun helpful, or is he not being helpful? Is a leprechaun enticing the humans to look at his pot of gold, and the other one's assisting him, or is the leprechaun going, hey, look, I've got a pot of gold, and the other one there is not a leprechaun? Let me know in the comment section what you think of it, but I'm going to colour that rainbow in and listen to the rest of the story.
House. I knew my fears were justified, and panic started to creep in. Some of his windows were broken, the others completely white. I almost turned the car around right then, but I slowly pulled into his driveway. I wanted to make sure he was okay. Maybe he wasn't home, like I was. No,
Red and orange
there was his
and
car still
green and
there.
blue. Red and
must have
orange
still
and
been
yellow
inside.
and green. I still
He's
can't remember which
still
way that
there, sitting
goes.
on his couch, his frozen gaze looking at the broken window. Snow everywhere, everything cold. That's what I saw when I went inside. I can hardly say it, but it was the most frightening thing I will ever see. His eyes were frozen white, any visible skin was an unsettling shade of blue, and his arm had fallen off and shattered into hundreds of pieces. It happens fast. I know that now. I think it grows slowly, so it needs to let more inside before it can. I don't know. Maybe that's how it feeds. I'm at my parents now. I didn't tell them what I saw. How could I, when I don't know what I saw? They asked why I was brushing and sweeping all the snow out of the house. I asked them to not go outside. That was a mistake. We should have left. All left. I forgot to check the shoe closet. 5 minutes ago, while I was typing this, I heard the windows break downstairs. It's starting to get cold. I saw a woman in the blizzard. By Cold Cuts 42. I'm sitting in my apartment living room right now, having a quick supper of chicken strips and coffee, trying to reconcile my thoughts on the last week or so. And it isn't easy. I figure I should get this down, in case I don't get another chance. I'm not really sure where to start. The weather in maritime provinces has been absolute crap the last few weeks, and I hear it's been pretty much the same over all the Northeast. Since that first big storm in January, we've had nearly 2 meters of snowfall here, and it seems every other day everything's closed. The roads are pure ice, the sidewalks are gone, and standing in the middle of the street, you can't see over the drifts on either side. They've recently begun dumping snow in the harbor, for lack of anywhere else to put it. So, where do I really begin? I suppose I'll start with some details on my life. I live in a small city that's really just a large town in Atlantic Canada, where I go to a community college, reaching for the stars here, and have recently leased my first ever apartment. It's a pretty okay place, consisting of an old 3-story home converted into 6 single-bedroom apartments. The apartments aren't very big, and the old building's kind of run down, but I've got my own kitchen and bath, and the rent's manageable. Most importantly, I live on my own, in an apartment on the 2nd story. Things had been going pretty well here, until this winter. I was doing well in school, my part-time job was fulfilling, and despite my property manager's conspiratorial joke that there might be a few ghosts about the old place, the apartment had been working out well for me. Some of the doors stick, and the heating's a little iffy at times, but the only real problem I've encountered is that some of the storm windows are cracked, and the inner pane on one window is loose. So, when it's windy, it has a tendency to rattle, and the wind whistles around the frame. So, when Winter Storm Juno hit, I was awakened in the middle of the night to the sound of the wind absolutely shrieking around the window in my living room. I looked over at my alarm clock, and it took me a moment to realize the power was out. So I checked my phone and saw it was around 4 in the morning. Sighing in disgust, but at least taking solace in the fact that I probably wouldn't have class in the morning, I switched on the light on my phone and rolled out of bed to see what I could do about the ungodly noise coming from the next room. The first thing that struck me when my feet hit the hardwood floor was how cold it had gotten in the night, and I quickly shifted on the slippers beside my bed as I headed over and unlatched the bedroom door. When I pulled the door open, I was greeted with a cool breeze and a sound like someone physically assaulting the loose window across the room, along with a small but dismaying pile of snow accumulating on the floor. Muttering a curse on the injustice of nature, I fetched a towel to clean up the snow, and then set about ending the wretched racket the loose window was making, finally managing to stop its rattling by wedging a few cardboard adverts that had arrived in the mail earlier in the week into the space between the glass and its frame. Satisfied that the noise level had dropped to little more than a pitiful whistling, I was turning to go back to bed when my eye caught something moving in the yard below. Straining to see the storm, I could vaguely make out a pale figure walking past the building, trudging along as if it wasn't knee-deep in snow and -40 outside with the wind chill. Between the darkness and blowing snow, I couldn't make out any details of the figure, so after watching it for a few more minutes, I shook my head at the crazy person walking in the blizzard and headed to bed. Apart from a persistent feeling of uneasiness, nothing else happened until Monday's blizzard, when again I woke with a start in the early hours of the morning. Apart from the wind howling outside, everything else was completely silent. A glance at my clock told me it was just before 3, and that thankfully the power was still on. Feeling for the lamp next to my bed, I switched it on and took a look around my room, noting nothing out of the ordinary, until I happened to peer out of the window. There across the street, standing in the swirling snow under a street lamp, was a woman. Her face was obscured by what looked like some sort of mask, but other than that, she wore next to nothing, only some rags on her upper and lower body, which might have once been clothes. She was rail thin, and her skin was the palest of anyone I had ever seen. Her head was angled up, and I knew she was looking directly at me. For a moment, nothing happened as we stared at one another, her in the middle of a blizzard, and me frozen, where I sat in sudden and inexplicable fear. Then I began to hear a voice calling my name across the distance. At first, I didn't recognize the voice, and it seemed to have a raspy quality, as if the speaker wasn't used to vocalization. But then it began to sound familiar, becoming the voice of a childhood friend, my mother, a girl I had dated briefly in high school. Every time the voice spoke, it changed, becoming someone else I had known well at one point or another. I sat transfixed, just listening to the call for some time until eventually I was startled into alertness by a sudden shriek. Whether from the wind or the creature outside, I can't say. Released from my terror, I saw the woman had progressed across the street, and in a frenzy I bolted from my bed, scrambling through the door in the living room and slamming it behind me. After ducking into the kitchen to make sure my apartment door was locked, I flicked on all the lights and fell upon my couch to browse Reddit until the sun came up. Anything to take my mind off what had just happened. I must have dozed off, though, because a few hours later, I was once more awakened to the sound of wind screaming and glass rattling back and forth. Figuring the cardboard had slipped out of the window frame, I sat up to fix it, and froze when I saw the source of the noise. Clinging just outside the window, staring in at me, was the woman tapping on the glass and screaming. From this distance, I could now make out every detail of her appearance. Her pale, frost-bitten skin stretched over her bones like leather on a wooden frame. Her hands were blackened from the cold, and her nails were gruesomely long and sharp-looking. Her limp, dark hair and the ragged remains of her clothes reminded me of something I had seen in the news a few weeks ago about a girl who had gone missing in the big storm. Worst of all, though, was what I had previously mistaken for a mask, as she wore the front of what looked like a carved-out human skull on her face, painted with the lines of a red substance I didn't want to acknowledge as probably being blood. From the sockets of the skull, bright blue eyes peered out, focused intently on me. When she saw that she finally had my attention, her screaming ceased, and it looked like she smiled, though it was difficult to tell behind the perpetual grimace of the skull. She began to talk to me then, in voices just like she'd called to me earlier. And though I hate to admit it, I talked back. I can't repeat what was said. Most of it I don't remember. The rest I don't want to remember. Can't bring myself to even type it out. At the end of our conversation, she pulled away the cracked storm window and lifted the inner pane, strong enough to easily splinter the wood as the metal latch tried to hold it closed. Snow poured in around her as she climbed through the window. I tried to get off the couch and flee as she approached, but none of my muscles responded, and I was left frozen and helpless to watch as one frost-bitten foot and then the other carried her closer to where I sat in shock.
Come with us into the cold,
she said in her rasping, half-growl of a voice, reaching out with sharp, black hands. The last thing I remember before I blacked out was her thumb pressing against my forehead and her ice-blue eyes looking through me. It's been 3 days since then. I awoke Monday afternoon to an apartment that was cold, but otherwise the same. The window was closed, though the wood over the latch was still splintered, the storm pane still broken. Feeling something tacky in my hair, I reached up to find a line of blood on my forehead, trailing from a small puncture just below the hairline. After that, I searched the apartment over, contacted my property manager about a window that had broken during the storm, and tried to get on with my life. Today, I awoke later than usual. It was late afternoon when I got out of bed, but luckily everything was still shut down from Monday's storm, and it's starting to squall again, already a near whiteout. I've just realized I forgot to cook the chicken I've been eating. I've finished half of it, and as I type this, I'm taking another bite. It's getting dark out, and this is the last of my storm food. Maybe I should go find some more. I'm starving.
Sounds to me like he turned into a vampire. What do you reckon?
Odd occurrences while hunting in Massachusetts, Part 1.
Let me start off by saying that I made this account specifically for this post. I've been reading this thread for the better part of 3 years now, and I always wished that I had an experience I could share on here with the Reddit community. I know a lot of what's posted on this thread isn't true, or just exaggerated, but what's about to follow is true, and I think this is probably the best place to post this, because I'm not exactly sure what happened, and I'm hoping you guys can help me figure it out. Let's start with a little background info. Ever since I can remember, I've been into the outdoors. Fishing, hunting, camping, and everything in between. My family likes to joke that I was raised by wolves, but to be honest, I kind of wish I was. I've always found myself at peace when I'm alone and cut off from the world, with only nature to keep me company, and hunting has always been the best outlet for me. Not many people truly understand the pure beauty us hunters witness. Being able to watch the sun rise from complete darkness and seeing it disappear while you're strapped 30 feet up in a tree is something not many people can say they've experienced. It's breathtaking. But on the evening of December 16th, 2016, things were a lot different. The deer hunting season was winding to a close. With about 2 weeks left in the season, I was eager to fill any of my buck tags. I was sitting in one of my favorite stands, right in this little creek bed in between two small hills, which deer follow along to get to a large stand of white oaks where they like to paw for acorns. It's a heavily traveled trail, and I was expecting a lot of action. I parked the car around 1 p.m. in the entrance to the state park. This gave me plenty of time to load the muzzleloader and head into the spot, which was about a 15-minute walk. After getting situated in the stand, I texted my parents to let them know I'd text them when I got back to the car and was on my way home. With that out of the way, I turned my phone on silent and waited for the deer to move. The first thing I began to notice was that it was eerily silent. Usually you hear a bird or squirrel moving around, but they were nowhere to be found, which I took as a good sign at first. They tend to make a lot of noise, and it's always better to hear the deer coming so you can get ready for a shot. Around 2:30, I began hearing something moving around me. I couldn't quite see anything because of the brush and trees around me, but I knew something was coming in. I picked up the muzzleloader, and just as I was doing that, the hard plastic butt of the gun hit the hollow metal of the stand and made a huge clanking sound. The movement around me immediately stopped. Dang it, I thought. Deer have very good hearing capabilities, and if one was out there, they definitely heard that. I proceeded to raise the gun to my lap and waited for the moment to start up again. But before I could, I heard a loud knock on a tree about 50 yards from me. It sounded like hard wood on wood. I definitely thought it was weird, but you hear a lot of things like that in the woods, especially the state park. I just kind of brushed it off and kept on waiting. After about 10 minutes, I heard the same sound again, though. This time,
Ooh, you're going to have to find out what that noise was up in the brush, because we are finished. I finished a drawing of today, and today's word again is treasure. We've got a pot of treasure here, or pot of gold, as the leprechaun's sitting on top going, I've got a pot of gold here. What you like my pot of gold? And you got the possibly not leprechaun, more of a goblin, imp, whatever, in the background going, ha, that's right, show off your gold, I'm going to steal it. Maybe. Or the leprechaun's luring the humans to his pot of gold, and the goblin in the background is helping him pull them into their world and maybe eat them. Maybe just share their world. But as I say, if they get captured, I don't think they're going to be exiting. Otherwise, guys, whatever you think that it is, let me know in the comment section down below. We're finished today, so click those links that will appear and join me tomorrow by hitting subscribe and dinging the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.